Hello and welcome to another step-by-step video for CIS 1A. We're working on Excel today, Chapter 4 in SIMnet Independent Project 4-4. And we'll need to get both a start file and a resources file, so make sure that you get those before we get started. I'll go ahead and open up my start file right now. And when we do that for the first time, we'll need to go ahead and enable editing. So I'll click on that to enable editing. And then I'll take a look at the first instructions that we need to follow. It says to open the file, enable editing, and then click the Billable Hours Sheet tab and select cell A4. So going back to Excel, we're going to go ahead and maximize this to give ourselves plenty of room. The Billable Hours Sheet tab is the one that was showing when we opened the file. Cell A4 says Client Name. Now what we're going to do in the next step is we're going to convert all of this data into a table. And I want to point out a couple of things before we do. First of all, they have done some formatting already. I prefer to, when I make a table, not to do a lot of formatting because the table itself provides formatting, and I think it's a better way to do formatting, and I think that you'll see why as we get into it. But notice that they like to have lines around all these boxes here, and so just take note of that right now. The other thing that they've done, which is a good thing in this case, is they've left a blank row at the top and a blank row on the side and a blank row at the bottom. And so that means in the next step, when we convert this to a table using the Format as Table command, Excel is going to be able to find the edges of the table. If they had not put this row here, row 3, I'll remove it temporarily. When we go to create the table, I'll just choose this right here. It's going to want to include these titles up here as part of the table, and they're really not part of the table. And so I would need to redraw the table selection to include only those cells that should be part of the table. You could do that by hand using the mouse. It can be kind of cumbersome if you're working with lots of data. And so if you simply have that blank row there at the top, it lets Excel find the edges of the table for you automatically. Now in the instructions it says, once you've clicked on cell A4, to go to the Format as Table button and use light gray table style medium 11, and so I'll do that right now. We're going to go to Format as Table, and we're looking for the medium colors, and it's going to be this one right here, the second row, the gray color in the center. Let's click on that. It's going to find the edges of the table like I talked about earlier, and it's also going to have this box checked here. Keep that checked. My table has headers, means that these labels will stay at the top of the table even if we sort the table according to some other criteria later on. Let's go ahead and click OK. That creates a table here. Let me just show you a couple of other things that will be relevant later on. We've got a date here. That date is the date will be different for you because it says that that date is equal to F2. F2, if we take a look at cell F2, it's using the today function. So it's going to be whatever day is the current day. And so this is a way, they're going to just use this as a way of creating a list of dates, starting with today's date. And it's not really a realistic scenario with this particular data. I wish they actually had done something a little bit different, but it is pretty common where you want to start with a particular date and then create a list of dates for maybe the rest of the month or some sequence like that. Let's get back to our instructions and see what we're going to do. Select cell C6 and type the formula shown here to add 1 to the date in the previous cell. So what that's going to look like is we're going to click here in cell C6. Notice that it tells me my cell right there in the name box. We're going to click in the formula bar, type equals, and then I'll click on cell C5 to let that type it for me. That's the date that already exists, plus 1, and that will add 1 to today's date for the next row, row 6. And so in our instructions, we're going to kind of repeat that pattern all the way down. We're going to use autofill to copy that down to row 51. So let's do that right now. I'll go ahead and click on the formula that we just created. Look in the corner of that cell, you're going to see a little green square, and I'm just going to put my mouse over that and double tap, and that's going to fill all these numbers, all these dates, all the way down, adding 1 to each date from the previous row as it moves that formula down the range. Okay, so we've pretty quickly just created a bunch of dates, not really random dates, but just sort of dates for creating a test set of data maybe for this project. And then it says to type in cell E4, 0.5 add-on. We're going to add a column to this table here, and we're going to see that Excel detects automatically that we're going to be extending our table to do something with column E. I'm going to click in cell E4. I'm going to go to the formula bar and paste. And if I paste in the formula bar, I don't need to worry about any formatting from having copied that off a web page. If you want, you could just type .5 space add-on, capitalize the words the way they've done it for correct grading. Go ahead and type it or paste it, click check, and then you might as well just extend the width of that a little bit so you can read all those words. What they're going to do is they're going to add half an hour to the hours in column D to hypothetically see, I guess, what would happen if they added an extra half hour to billable hours. I'm not really sure what the scenario is supposed to be here. But notice that because they had already formatted this, this data with these lines, the new column that we have here does not include the lines around each one of these cells. Let's see what they want us to do about that right now. So I'll check off step 6, and we're on step 7. Now build a formula in cell E5 to add 0.5 to cell D5 and press enter to copy the formula. Format results to display 2 decimal places and apply all borders. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So we're going to start with the equal sign here because we're making a formula, and we're going to add 0.5 to cell D5. So I'll do .5 plus plus, and I'll click on cell D5. And notice that it uses the name of that column there. Because we're working with a table, it's not going to use a cell reference like D5. It's going to actually use a table reference, which is a good thing because it will ensure that the formula is able to copy down the column for all the other rows. Let's go ahead and check that off right there. It figures that because this is a table, we want to fill in all these cells equally. So it uses that same formula to do the same process, the same procedure in each one of these rows here. Format the results to display 2 decimal places and apply all borders. Let's select this, and we're going to use 2 decimal places and all borders. So on the Home tab, we'll go ahead and add a 0 to make it consistent with the previous column, column D, and we'll use the Borders tool to use all borders. And so now it looks just like the billable column in column D. Okay, let's keep on going here. Select cell C5. C5 is a reference to the today function in cell F2. I've already mentioned that to you guys. I'll select C5. Notice it says equals F2. Here's F2 right there. F2 is using the today function. So all these dates are functions. We want to convert them to actual dates, and they're going to have us use a copy-paste technique to do that. Sort the column by date in the newest to oldest order. Because the dates are calculated, the formulas are wrong. The date that was originally in cell C5 is sorted to row 51 and now has a relative reference to cell F48. Okay, here's what they're talking about here. We're going to go in newest to oldest order here. Let me go ahead and get back to Excel. Because this is a calculated thing, if I sort by newest to oldest, it's going to move this newest date all the way down to the bottom here. And that's going to break all of these calculations here. So let me undo that. And what we're going to do is convert all the dates into actual dates just as if we typed them. Okay. So what they're showing us is that once we have dates here, to keep them as a formula is going to make it difficult to really treat this as a table and change the order of these rows, for example. So what we're going to do is select from cell C5 all the way down to C51. If you have trouble using the mouse to do this, just select the first one, go to the bottom, hold the Shift key, and select the last one. And the Shift key will get everything in between for you. Let's go ahead and, are we going to use copy or cut? Use Control-C to copy, and then paste as values. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy that. I'll use this button right here for that. And then with this still selected, I'll go ahead and choose Paste Values, and I'll just choose Basic Values here. And it seems like nothing has happened, but if I click on this cell here, in cell C5, it's going to show me now that that actually has in the formula bar 11/6/2023. Your date will be different, but it's no longer linked to that today function like it was previously. Okay, so what we've done is we've used a formula to build the dates, and then we've converted them into static dates, typed dates. Okay, and so it says sort the data in the table by date in newest to oldest order, and then sort it by product service in ascending order. So that's going to look like this. Date, newest to oldest. It brings the what would be the most recent date to the top. That's going to be, in my case, December 22nd. And the oldest date would be 11/6. And so when it does that, it's going to also rearrange all of these rows here. So let's see, Amir, when I do this procedure here, newest to oldest, Amir is going to go down to the bottom of the list, and Wade Whitworth is going to go to the top. So we're going to sort this by date as the primary sort, and then we're going to go to another sort, actually will be the primary sort, sort by product service in ascending order. And so what we're doing here is, if you're sorting data by two things, first we do date and then we do product and service. The most important one is the one that you do last. And so what happens now is there's a bunch of, let's say, accounting installation services. So it's going to put all those together. When it has a list of those, within that block, it's going to sort them by date. So if you wanted to sort something by last name and then first name for a list of people, sort it by first name and then sort it by last name. So kind of what we call the primary sort is the one that you do last, because it gets it blocks everything into those clumps, and then within those clumps it sorts it according to whatever it was sorted as before. I hope that makes sense. Use Power Query to transform data. Select the Contracts Sheet tab and select cell A4. Let's do that together. Click on the tab that says Contracts and select cell A4. Now for this, we'll need to have the data file that we downloaded previously, so make sure that you have that. Use the from text CSV command to preview the text file that we downloaded. I'm going to show you that file right now. It's just a bunch of text. It's got first name and then a tab, last name, address, phone number, city. So we could copy and paste this, but we're going to use a more powerful tool to bring this into our spreadsheet. And you'll see some of the features that we have. Go to Data, and you've got Get and Transform Data as this section right here. I've got a button showing here from Text CSV. It could also be from File, Text CSV. There's usually more than one way to do this. I'll click on this file here, this button right here from Text CSV. I'm going to need to find the data here. I'll hit Import. And before it imports, it's actually going to open up a tool that will let us preview the data. It says, okay, well, here's what I found. It's organized into columns. with tabs in this case. And it tells me that's the delimiter there, tabs. It's used to separate things out. How do they want us to do this? Let's take a look at the instructions. Click Transform Data in the preview window to open Power Query. So this is going to be something that you'll need to have the latest version of Excel to be able to do. Transform data. And it opens up a new window here. Let me bring that around. Click the address column, press Control, and click the phone number column. Click Remove Columns to get rid of them. And then remove Zip, ID, and First Contact. So what we've got here in this file here is more data than we really need. And so if we click on something, a column, we can click on the column labels to select the entire column. And what we want to do is get rid of address and phone number. So I'll do that first. Address, and then use the Control key for the second click to get rid of that, and then click Remove Columns. Now it didn't delete that from the actual data file, it just removed it from our from what we're going to be importing here. So let me go ahead and go back to our instructions. Select and remove Zip, ID, and First Contact. Okay, I'll do that now. Control key goes down, ID, and then skip one, First Contact, and remove those with the same button. We could have done that in one step. And then scroll the window as needed to see rows 28 to 43. There are 16 blank rows, and so we want to get rid of those. Remove bottom rows to get rid of 16 rows total. Let me see if I can remember all that as we go through it here. So it says to scroll down, look at our data, and take note of the fact that we have all these empty rows here. Null means that there's nothing there. So there's maybe some, I'm guessing that there's some blank paragraphs at the bottom of this. So we could count them. There's going to be 16. They've already told us that. And so we're going to use remove rows, remove bottom rows. How many bottom rows? We're going to type in the number 16 right there. Hit OK. And that removes everybody or everything that's blank. Patricia Gluns is the last person that we have there, and I can verify here that she's the last person in the table. And yeah, we can see that there's a bunch of blank rows in that text file. Back to our instructions. Click the arrow with the Close and Load button and load the data to cell A4. Okay, so if we have already selected cell A4 here, it's going to be ready to do that for us. Close and load. Let's drop down to close and load to ... to make sure that it's going to put that into the existing worksheet. We don't want to create a new worksheet. That's the default. So that's why we chose close and load ... So make sure you select this circle right here. Make sure it says $A $4 as your target. It's going to have it highlighted with the marquee. Hit OK. And after a moment, it's going to pull that data in and it's going to format it automatically as a table. Let's go ahead and continue on. It says place a formula in a table. Select cell F4, type fees as the header, and press enter. So let's go back to our table. F4 is right here. We're going to type the word fees and hit enter. It's going to extend our table for us. And as far as this side panel goes, we can go ahead and close this. We're not going to need it again. The next step after we create the new column is we're going to select the cell underneath it, F5, and create a formula to multiply E5 by 225. So what it sounds like is that they've got hours that they've worked on this project, and their billable rate is $225 an hour. So what we're going to do is click in the first row under fees. In the formula bar, I'll type equals. I'll click on the hours, which is 13. I'll do star to multiply and type 225 and hit enter. And that's going to build that formula for all of those rows. We're going to format that as currency, round it off to 0 decimal places. And so go ahead and do that right now. Let's select all of these. Make sure that you do not click the $sign. That is called accounting format. You don't want to use that here. You want to go up to where it says General and choose Currency. Get rid of those zeros that we don't need for pennies and click the decrease decimal button twice. Close the Queries and Connections pane. I already did that. Sort the data by fees and then by city, both in ascending order. So we're going to have it be primarily sorted by city as the main thing, and then within each group, we're going to sort the city data by fees. And so we're going to do it kind of in backwards order. So we're going to see that within the city of Bemidji, it's going to go from smallest to largest number here. Then it'll start over for the city of Brainerd and Cass Lake and so forth. All right, let's keep on going here. Change the font size of cells A1 and A2 to 20 points and set the size to bold. Select both these cells here, A1 and A2. We're going to make the size of that be 20. So on the Home tab, font size 20, and also bold. Select cells A1 to F2. So we're going to go from A1 to F2, and I'll make this larger so we can see better into our alignment zone here. We need to launch our alignment dialog box, and we're going to choose horizontal center across selection. And so that's going to perfectly center those titles across the columns where our table is positioned. Copy the billable hours sheet to the end of the stack of tabs and name it data. So I'm going to right click, well, I'll go to billable hours here. I'm going to right click and choose move or copy ... Right click, move or copy ... And before you forget, click create a copy, then click move to end and click OK. And I believe that what they wanted us to call this was data, I believe. Is that right? Yes. So I'll go ahead and double click on the tab, backspace, and DATA. Enter. I've named that tab data. We're going to create a pivot table from that data. So we're going to go ahead and select cell A5 and click the table name box. And we're going to call this table hours. So what we're doing here, I'll copy that. On the data tab, we're going to select cell A5. And we're going to name the table hours. TBL is an abbreviation for table. So let's go to cell A5. We're going to go to table design. And notice that it has a name already. It's somewhat random, table 14. We're going to type TBL hours. In some shops or some companies, they like to name things with a little code to tell you what it is. So it's TBL is that code to tell us it's a name for a table as opposed to a cell or a range. So we're going to call it table hours. And by doing that, it will make it a little bit more obvious once we use our pivot table where that data is coming from. If you have a lot of tables in a workbook and you're making pivot tables, you may want to be able to trace back the pivot table to the source data. So let's go ahead and go to Summarize with Pivot Table. There it is right there. Click on that. Select Arrange TBL hours. Makes it much easier to select the correct thing when it has a name. I think we're probably going to use an existing or a new worksheet for this. Let me check. And so I'll go ahead and choose New Worksheet, click OK, and call that worksheet Pivot Table. Notice that there is no space there. I'll click OK. There's a new thing called Sheet 2. I'm going to copy the name Pivot Table and type it right there. Hit the Enter key or paste it right there. Now this is not a pivot table. We have to choose what data we're going to use for our pivot table. And so we're going to use the product service and the billable fields here. So just check those off, product service and billable. And so now what it does is it finds all of the things that are accounting installation and it adds up the billable hours. Okay, let's keep on going here. So a pivot table is really a table that summarizes another table, and we're going to use the billable hours field twice. We can only use the checkbox to get it once, and so what we're going to do is we're going to use another operation, drag and drop, make it appear twice in our table. Let's see how we do that. I'm going to take that here. If I put my mouse over it, notice I've got a four-way arrow. I hope you can see that in the video. I'm going to click and drag that down here where it says sum of billable. I'm going to drop it right there in this box here, which is called values. So these are calculated values. Notice it has the sum symbol, the sigma. And so it puts in sum of billable twice. We're going to have it do two different calculations, actually. So we're going to modify that. Select C4 and open the value field settings dialog box. So select cell C4, the number 54 is in that cell. Value field settings is going to be this button here that says field settings. I'm going to open that. And here it has a name. Leave the name alone for right now. Choose the function that we're going to use, and then it'll, well, let me show you here. I think they're going to have us change the function. You always want to change the function first before you type average hours. I'll show you why. I'll go ahead and copy this. It says to, in this box here, give it a new name. Average hours, and then click average here. Well, as soon as you click anything down here, it automatically changes the custom name. So go ahead and click average here, and then go up to this little field, this little input field, and type average hours. And we also want to do one more thing, so keep that open there. We want to format the number with 2 decimal places. So we want to go to number format and say that this is going to be formatted as a number with 2 decimal places. And I would personally choose comma separator, although these numbers aren't going to be big enough to need a comma separator. So they don't tell us to do it. I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Number, 2 decimal places, OK. Now nothing's happened yet. That's all we got to do here. So I'll go ahead and click OK. So notice now that we've got the calculation is the average number of hours. There's that new title that we gave it, and it's got 2 decimal places. Click on the number 54. Whoops, I double clicked. Let me go back to my pivot table. Click on the number 54 right here, and we're going to do something similar right there with field settings. In this case, we're going to keep it as the sum. But we're going to call this total hours. And we're going to use, again, number and 2 decimal places as our formatting. So sum is what we want. We can go ahead and change the name of it right there. Under number format, choose number. 2 decimal places is the default. So click OK twice. And now it says total hours, and we have a consistent formatting of numbers for both columns there. Apply style to it. Dark gray, pivot style dark 11 with banded rows and columns. So that's going to be the design tab. Pivot table styles, medium, light, and dark. We're going for dark gray. 11 is going to be which one? This one here, 15. 11, is that 11? There it is. It's in the middle of the second row under dark. So make sure that you get the dark one, the dark category. Click on that. And once you've done that, make sure you check off banded rows and banded columns. And that puts lines both vertically and horizontally. I think that's a better way of putting lines onto a table or a pivot table than using the lines tool. All right. Select the Data Sheet tab and copy cells A1 and A2 and paste them on the pivot table sheet and left align them. Okay, they just want to have a nice title. We're going to go back to our Data tab, go to the top. We're going to select cells A1 and A2. We're going to copy that. We're going to go back to the pivot table, select cell A1, And we're going to go ahead and paste that. When it does that, it's going to want to center that up. We're going to change that to left alignment. We're not going to do anything fancy with that. So that is step 18. On the Data Sheet tab, select the first two cells, those there. Go back to PivotTable, paste them in, and left align that. Okay. Finally, it says create subtotals. Let's go to the Data Sheet and copy that entire sheet to the end and call it the new tab Subtotals. Let me go ahead and do that. Copy. Data, right-click, choose Move or Copy, ... Click Create a Copy, click Move to End, click OK, and then name it Subtotals. Now make sure you name these tabs perfectly, because if you don't, when you go to grade it, the grader cannot find the sheet, and it gets totally confused, and it won't give you any points for the work that you've done on that tab. Okay, so select cell A5 and convert the table to a range. We're going to use the subtotal command, which is something that is an alternative to a table. So we got to make this thing be not a table. Click on the table, doesn't really matter where. Go to Table Design, and then click on Convert to Range. It says, are you sure? Yes, we are. Click on Yes. And we want to get rid of the fill. Now, a lot of times I want to keep the fill. It looks pretty good. But in this case, we're going to be adding some rows, and the way that it's striping these rows is not going to look good once we add some rows into the middle. So let me go ahead and select the entire thing, and then go to the Paint bucket and choose No Fill. Select cells A4 to E4 and change the font color to black. So notice that when this is not a table anymore, we've lost the typing here. It's just because the color is white. It did have a darker background before, but I took away that fill color. So now I want to select these cells here with the disappeared color and change the text color to black. And so now it says to use the subtotal command to show a sum for billable and add-on amounts for each product service. Apply all borders. Here's what we're going to do. It's critically important for this tool called the Subtotal tool that you have your table or your data sorted according to some column, alphabetically, usually. And so we've got accounting, content development, ERP. We've already got this sorted. Because when we do a subtotal, we have to have some block of rows that we're subtotaling, and it's going to be based upon whenever we change the value in the product service column to a new category. Okay, so click on your table, and we're going to go to Data, and the very last button is Subtotal. It gives us a pop-up window. At each change in not client name, that just happens to be the first column, change this to product service. That's the one that's alphabetical. Use the sum function. We could change that to average or something else, but we're going to use the sum total for doing a subtotal for the billable column and the add-on amount. So it's detected that we've got a last column here that has numbers. We actually want to do two subtotals for both of these columns, so 2 check marks here. Don't need to change any check boxes here. Hit OK. And so now it adds a new row whenever there is a change from one service to another, and it gives us the total for the billable hours and the total for the add-on hours value. We're going to go ahead and apply all borders to this so that we have consistent borders all the way down to row 57. It's added those two rows down there. Let's go to Home, click on All Borders. And it says display only the product, service, and grand total. So sometimes these tables with subtotals can be pretty long. You don't care about all the details, so you can hide that by clicking the different buttons that you've got here In this case, click the number 2 button for second level detail. You'll get a total for each one of the major categories without all the detail rows. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. Use the subtotal command to show a sum for billable and add-on amounts. Apply all borders and display only product, service, and grand totals. Save and close the worksheet. I'll go ahead and do that right now. Let's cross our fingers and hope for the best. Go to the top of the page, and we're going to go find the file. Give me just a second to do that. Uploading the file. Let's submit the file and see how it turns out. Okay, so in this case, I was able to do the assignment correctly, so I don't have any corrections to show you. So hopefully you've been able to follow along with this and the video has been helpful to you. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.